friends, it's Christy. Welcome back. I am so excited to tell this story today. Last night I sat down and looked at some old photos and videos and watched the first episode of the show we're going to talk about. It just took me right back to 2010. I felt that desperation, the stress, and of course, the excitement. I think if you know me already, then you probably know me from my interviews with the cast of Vanderpump Rules, right? So I've been doing the YouTube thing for a long time. I was the first red carpet reporter out there with their own outlet. And that cast was so on my radar before the show even started airing. I was at SUR getting interviews with them, kind of trying to find out who they were. I knew the show was going to be huge. And we're going to talk today about the reason why it was on my radar so loud back then. That show is because I myself was supposed to star, I think, on the original restaurant reality show. So before Vanderpump Rules, there was another one. Of course, since then, after that, we had What Happens at the Abbey, which is one of my favorites. Southern Hospitality is great. House of Fang, one of my friends is on that show. But the first one ever only went one season. It aired on VH1, and it was Saddle Ranch. Have you seen it? Don't go looking for me on it. I'm going to tell you today why you will not see my face on any episode of the show. We're going to get right into it. If you listen to the first episode, you know that way back in the day, I started my career in Los Angeles working at E! Entertainment. I was the assistant to the executive producer of E! True Hollywood Story, and I was there for about 2.5 years. When all the cool, fun stuff that they give you there to kind of distract you from the fact that you're not making any money and that they do not let people who work behind the scenes there audition for on-camera positions, all that kind of started to get to me. You know, E was my dream job and I always wanted to work there, but things lose their luster. And not making any money living in that tiny bachelor apartment was really tough. After a couple years, you know, you want more. Even as a 22-year-old living in Los Angeles, I had my big dreams, and working at E was not making them come true as I thought that it was going to, right? It seemed like a dead ringer. Go to E, be an intern, be an assistant, get on air, be the new Juliana, right? It was very simple, but it was not so simple, turned out. So after a couple of years working there, I had a friend who was a PA. She was so much fun. Let's call her Kelly. And Kelly really knew how to do LA right. You know, I was kind of looking at my broke self, just hanging out on the weekends, you know, sleeping on my futon. I had upgraded from an air mattress back then. But Kelly kind of knew what was up. She had more money than I did. She was always talking about going out and doing these fun things, all these cool people that she met. She would party a lot. And that was a lifestyle that I wanted to experience a little bit in LA. I was doing the office thing. And Kelly really made me realize that there was more to life out there in Los Angeles. And she was doing this because she was moonlighting as a PA and also as a server at Saddle Ranch on the Sunset Strip, the infamous restaurant with the mechanical bull. I'm sure that you've seen it on TV. They not just have their own reality show, but on pretty much every reality show that films in LA, they go there at some point and make people ride the bull and do the whole thing. It's also the place with the big blue drinks. I don't think they actually even do that anymore, but that's what they're famous for. And the cotton candy. You know, if you see people go to Hollywood and you're like, what is this place where they're at with the cotton candy and the s'mores? It's Saddle Ranch. Perhaps you've been lucky enough to go there. Obviously, I have spent many time there. I ended up working there for several years, but this is how I got my in. I knew Kelly, and she said, "Hey, you know, I'm making all this extra money. Like, I go to Saddle after work, and you know, work for a few hours, and then I can come the next day and work here during the day." So I had done the financially struggling and frustrated, can't move up assistant in entertainment thing. And I was ready to do the aspiring host / waiter thing. I thought that would be an exciting new life in Los Angeles. So Kelly told me, come after work at E one day and just meet the general manager. I'm sure that they will hire you at Saddle Ranch. Sounded easy. So I put a little bit of thought into this, though. I didn't think it would be a dead ringer for me. I had to dress the part. So I put on this I have it hanging in my closet to this day. It's my Saddle interview dress, a strapless denim, like light denim dress with bronze kind of square studs on it. And it was very like rock and roll. I was dressed for the part. I went into Saddle Ranch, super excited to again sit and wait. That's going to be a recurring theme, I feel like, in this podcast is that, I thought something was a sure go. I thought we were moving on to the next big step, and then nothing. And as I told you last episode, I am not a very patient person, but I sat for hours at Saddle right in the middle of everything, right near the bar while I waited for the GM to meet with me and kind of took it all in. I had never actually been there, and to see all these beautiful servers and bartenders running around in like their little boots and their cut off shorts and their cut up t-shirts all tied up with like cute bandanas in their hair. And there were cowboy hats hanging all over the wall that they were trying to sell to patrons, and people are riding the mechanical bull. And it was like, the middle of the afternoon on a weekday, and there was all that going on there. I was pretty enthralled. So by the time I finally got to talk to the GM, Candy Potts was her name. We can kind of put her on blast because she's all over the show. And she was a really, really cool woman who ran that place, which was like, I think probably more like babysitting 100 children than really anything. And she did it with such grace and poise. She was cool. So after making me wait for like 4 hours to talk to her, she pretty much just hired me, I think, because she felt bad. I could not have been more excited. My husband, Farmer John, and all my friends, we went back to Saddle Ranch that night to kind of celebrate my new job and eat there and get the experience. And boy, what an eye-opener that was to see the restaurant in the dark, in kind of full mode. And my friend Kelly was working at the time, and something happened that that really confused me in the moment, but that I really learned to understand in the weeks following as I trained at the restaurant. And when we were there that night, she was working and we were eating. She was like, "Hey, I got this drink that I got from the bar." And I'm like, I didn't order this drink. She's like, "Yeah, just go to the bathroom and like put it in the bathroom on the floor, like in one of the stalls, and then tell me which one, and I'm gonna go and drink it. I need a drink." I was like, "Oh, okay. Is that what y'all do here? Well, that seems weird, but all right, I'll do it." And I did, and she had her drink. And my restaurant experience leading up to this was, the hometown diners in New Ulm, Minnesota. And then when I went to college, I worked at a Red Lobster and a steakhouse, kind of a middle America kind of stuff. So this whole drinking on the clock, party time, shots, this was all going to be very, very new to me. Right. But I was ready to embrace it. So I still was working my job for the first couple weeks as I started training at Saddle Ranch. And my intention was to keep doing both. To get to my shift after I remember going down to one of the bathrooms on the very first floor, kind of away from everybody, to change into my Saddle Ranch outfit because I didn't want anybody at to see me and know that I was doing this. Even though Kelly it was a little different for me because I was the executive producer's assistant. And it's sort of, I think it would have raised some red flags, right? Where is she going? What is she doing? And is she leaving the department? Which I did very quickly on. It was about 2 weeks, I think, of working at Saddle before I decided, hey, you know what? I have a pocket full of cash and I am out of here. My first day at Saddle Ranch, first day ever, I made $120, and that was more cash than I had in my hand in years. I made this super cute video, which I might interject here a little bit so you can hear some of it from my very first day working.
Oh my God. Okay, so I can't wait to get these boots off, and that was absolutely crazy. And I didn't realize it was the World Cup soccer football final thingies. I don't know, but I did pretty good, and I have $120 in my pocket that I didn't have before, and everyone was really nice. And the only mistake I really made was mixing barbecue chicken sandwiches for buffalo chicken sandwiches, which I think is an honest mistake.
I am so excited about this $120 that I made. I'm talking 100 miles a minute, and I also describe being dehydrated and not looking at the clock and never sitting down. It became sort of my life for the next several years. I watched that video back now. I'm like, yep, that was just day one. Every other day after that was just the same. This was sort of before two people were filming everything. This is when our camera phone quality was awful. That video, if you see it, was filmed on what they call a flip phone. So I'm so excited to have that kind of little piece of video, little piece of history from my first day. It was right when I got in the car. And I talk about mistaking buffalo chicken sandwiches for barbecue chicken sandwiches and how it was the World Cup soccer final thingies. is what I called it. Now, every time I hear about the World Cup finals, I'm like, oh, it's my anniversary of my first day at Saddle Ranch. But the first day went absolutely great and making all that money. I decided I did not need E anymore. That sounds so ridiculous, especially if you listen to the first episode of the show, Broke at the Oscars, where I talk about getting my job there, starting as an intern, and all the cool experiences that I got on the red carpet and, summer block parties, all the cool things that I got to experience there just really sort of became lackluster and mundane, and I had kind of done it all there. So it was time to move on, and they had a little party for me. They got me a cake, my friends did, which was so nice and appreciated. And I wore this dress that I wore every single time. Like, I try to show you guys pictures of this period, but I'm wearing the same dress in almost all of them. You can see me in my little cubicle with all my pictures hanging up. I was ready to be out of there. The other factor here is that what sort of drew me in about Saddle Ranch was not the promise of, all this cash and having your days off to be able to go to auditions and pursue hosting. It wasn't even working at this famous restaurant where our celebrities would come in, and it was on the Sunset Strip and it was so exciting. The thing that really got me was when Kelly said to me, there's a rumor that they're going to be shooting a reality show at Saddle Ranch. Oh boy, you guys. And once I started to work there and talk to all the other employees, everybody was buzzing about it. It was the word around the ranch, right? Which I came to find out over the years was kind of a going theme, and that famous of a place, even after they had one season of a reality show, it was always somebody coming in to film something and, we're working here is going to get us on TV. Sort of the same idea that I had at E. But this one was very promising. They were casting just when I started working there, and they seemed interested in me. They asked me to make a home tape. The production company was Buna Murray. So back then, a kind of an audition tape was what they wanted you to do. There couldn't have been more going on at this time in my life. Now, I do a lot of exciting things, and it's fun and it's cool, and I work and I get to go places and meet people. But when I was in my 20s, especially these first few years in LA, those things were happening every single day, right? My life was changing every week. There was a new experience and something to be excited about. This particular time, not only was I transitioning from E to Saddle Ranch, but my husband, Farmer John, and I, we weren't married at the time, were also moving from this bachelor apartment near the E studios to the bottom of the Hollywood Hills to a studio apartment, from a kitchenless bachelor to a studio apartment with a kitchen. Uh, and we were so excited to be going up kind of in the West Hollywood area. This was near Saddle Ranch, and we were going to be where everything happens. And we were going to have more space and an air conditioner. It was so exciting, but this was all going down at the same time as I was trying to get cast on a reality show, switching jobs. And when Buna Murray asked me to make this home tape, I did it in my apartment where there are boxes everywhere. And one of the first things that I say, gosh, I look back at these now and listen, and I have to laugh at myself. And I'm sure you will too. So maybe I'll put the clip in, because I just said something so ridiculous at the beginning of my home tape.
Come into my very humble abode, my kitchenless, air conditioningless, parkingless, laundryless, very tiny apartment. But I think that I was willing to live here in this tiny place is in direct correlation with the largeness of my dreams.
I took the camera kind of around my tiny apartment and talked about my engagement and my family and these big dreams that I had to be a TV host. And that's, I guess, what hooked them. So Buna Murray was casting. I put in my home tape, and originally I got this huge news in the midst of moving and quitting my job and starting a new one. I got this huge news that they wanted me for the Saddle Ranch reality show. It's finally it's here. I worked at E Entertainment for 2.5 years, hoping to get on camera there. And now I've worked at my job at Saddle Ranch for probably about a week. And I'm going to get cast on a brand new reality show. I could not have been more gobsmacked, more excited. And the coolest thing about this at the time is the way that they pitched it to us. So if you watch the show now, it's not quite how it all played out. But the way that the show was supposed to be originally is they told us it was going to be like The Hills. Okay, we're going to show you guys working in the restaurant, but we're also going to show you outside the restaurant chasing your big dreams, right? Going to auditions, or there were other people on the show that were like musicians and dancers and all kinds of things, and they wanted to show the difference between our lives in the restaurant and then going out and pursuing our big dreams. If that sounds a little familiar, it was very similar to The Hills. And that's what they told us they were kind of trying to go for. They were like, we want this for MTV and it's going to be the new Hills. And so I, of course, thought that, well, that makes me the new Lauren Conrad, right? Of course, duh. So that was the mindset that I had going into filming the pilot of Saddle Ranch. Being someone who wanted so badly to be on television and work in production, it was just cool for me to see what was all going on. They came to my apartment at one point. Like, I remember having all these people and cameras in this tiny room where, there's hardly enough room just for me to sit, and sitting on the couch and filming a scene with one of the hostesses, kind of just talking about our like her dating life and some other fun stuff. And we filmed a lot in the restaurant, of course. I actually skipped my now sister-in-law's wedding for the weekend filming of this pilot that we were going to do. This was in August of 2010. I had started working there in July. So it was so exciting. I remember it was always like, what are we going to wear? Saddle Ranch was famous for their cool t-shirts, which said pretty derogatory things that I probably should have been offended by, like save a horse, ride a cowboy. My favorite one that I wore for the pilot was a pink tank top that said, come get lucky, which I cut to be as tiny as it possibly could have been. That was kind of the biggest part of the whole pilot, was like, well, what are we going to wear? Because we're going to go into the restaurant and do our thing, but like, what are we going to wear? And the bandanas around our heads, how do you do that and make your hair still look cute? It was a whole thing. And it was so much fun. And I really just could see it all in my head. I thought this was finally my chance. It's all playing out. You shoot the pilot, then it starts to air, then you get big, and then you get put on TV because of the exposure that you have for this reality show. And it was just all going to happen for me, right? Wrong. So wrong. After the pilot, oh my gosh, you guys, more waiting. This theme of waiting, and how have I still not developed patience when this has been my life? But so there was so much excitement around filming the pilot of the show at the restaurant, and then nothing, right? Buna Murray takes it. They were cutting it up. They were pitching it to people. We didn't hear a word until October. If I remember correctly, we had an inkling, or someone had kind of heard from the network, maybe there will be news. And then one day, in the Hollywood Reporter, on the front page, I still have it, was a picture of the restaurant, of somebody like riding the bull in the middle, with a huge headline talking about how the Saddle Ranch series had gotten picked up and was going to air for 10 episodes on VH1. Oh my gosh. This was something that I could tell my family and friends, which was a huge relief, because when I initially said I'm going to quit my real job and go be a server at a restaurant where people take smoking shots and ride a mechanical bull, I think, my family was like a little bit concerned, right? Working at E wasn't helping me make my dreams come true, but it was security. And there was some promise of moving up and actually working in television. I was just going to go wait tables like I had in high school. So for me to have something to be able to tell them, like, no, this is bringing me opportunities. I am going to be on TV. This is how I'm going to get everything that I want. And it's the whole reason why I'm here. Then it kind of made a little bit more sense to people. But of course, in the meantime, I was just having a whole lot of fun, like working at Saddle Ranch, probably 30 hours a week or something, 4 or 5 days a week, making my money, having my fun at work, after work. There was a lot of that. But this kind of appeased everyone, right? So it seemed like I was on the right track at this point. We had a meeting with the network not too long after we heard the news that the show got picked up at Saddle Ranch. All the executives that were going to be working on the show called together the people who had all filmed the pilot. There was a bunch of us, maybe like 8 of us or so. And I was a little suspicious, because they also said, there are these other workers there that we also want to be at this meeting. And it was people who hadn't been picked, we thought, hadn't been filmed in the pilot. And we're kind of like, ew, like, why? Ew, what? Like, why is she on? Why do they want to talk to her? Why do they want these people at the meeting? My upcoming behavior here is going to shock you, and I'm not proud of this. So just keep listening. So at this meeting, part of the thing, they kind of start telling us how it's going to work and how filming is going to be. And then at some point, they say, we've picked a core cast of people that we're mainly going to film, and then everyone else are going to kind of be peripheral. You can be around, you'll be part of the show and we'll be filming you. But here, and now we're going to name them all in front of you at this meeting, is our main cast. You guys, these reality TV executives know exactly what they're doing at every moment with everything. Nothing is by accident. And they knew exactly what they were doing by announcing the main cast in front of a bunch of 20 somethings who all want to be famous and thought that they already were. Thought that this was my shot. And shockingly, I was not named as one of the main cast members. Looking back on this now, and even then, I kind of got the idea. I don't remember if it was from somebody or if I just kind of understood that I was trained to be on camera. So I presented a little bit. Like I was doing what we call now playing a TV host, or just trying to say the right things and being clear that I knew that a camera was on me. People who are on reality TV are really good because they don't give a crap that the cameras are there. And well, I think I might be able to do that now, even though that would not be my choices, would not be something I would ever venture into now, or have the balls to give a go to reality TV now. But back then, I thought that I would be great on it because of my on-camera experience. But I think that really worked against me. I think I came off as a little bit fakey. I think they were concerned that I was going to be more worried about my image than getting drunk and behaving badly on camera. I wasn't about to do that. They knew that. And when they announced these names, I subconsciously took that moment to show them why it was a mistake. I didn't have it in my mind to really show out and make them notice me in a way that maybe would get me cast as part of the main cast. I was just pissed off. And I was upset, and I ranted and raved and screamed in that meeting like a maniac. I don't have memories of this. I wish I could tell you more. I just remember people telling me that that's what happened. And I maybe vaguely remember getting up out of my chair. Maybe did I walk out? I don't even know. It's all a blur. But I know that I hadn't before that and haven't since, I don't think, acted that way in front of important people ever. And I just remember too, you know what? I'm so glad that that happened now, because it was kind of my one opportunity to be a big personality in front of everybody. And it kind of was what everybody was talking about. The show had gotten picked up, and Saddle Ranch was going to be on a global platform. And what everybody was talking about is Christy's little freak out at the meeting. So, what if I just said that I was not proud of it and then went on to brag about it a little bit? But that was my one big reality TV moment, and the cameras weren't even rolling. I was so disappointed, and I really went the other way with it then. So I was like, well, fine. I mean, I still work here. I'm going to be here when the cameras are on, but I am going to do my best to avoid them. I'm not going to any of the events, and I'm going to make sure everybody in this restaurant, everybody at Buena Murray knows that I decided I do not want to be part of this production and of this show, and I will not take any part of it. I've suddenly realized that I'm above this. It's such a joke. That's such a joke. And now I guess I do wish a little bit that I had tried to involve myself just for the experience of it. When I watched an episode of the show last night and they talked about what all went down the whole season, I kind of thought oh, it would have been fun to be there for the filming of some of those things. But I don't know that I would have elbowed my way onto the show in a way that really would have mattered anyway. And what the show ended up being was completely different than the way they had pitched it to us. And the fact that I wasn't picked to be a main cast member should have been my first indicator for that, because they knew that I wasn't going to get drunk and act crazy and fight with everybody on camera. And that wasn't what they had pitched to us, right? That's not what happened on the hills. That's not what Lauren Conrad did. But a key piece of information here is that in between the time when we shot the pilot and when the show actually got picked up by VH1, The show Jersey Shore premiered and got real hot real fast. So Buna Murray went from being like, well, we're going to make the new Hills to we're going to make another Jersey Shore. And instead of showing you guys outside the restaurant, going to your auditions and doing your thing, we want you in the restaurant drinking, fighting, staying after your shift to sit at the bar and drink and fight some more. And that's really what the show is going to be about, is your relationships between each other now. Very suspect. Right. And that's really is what it became. I don't know. I won't speak for the people who ended up on the show. They were all my friends. I knew all of them very well. If we all want to sit down and watch the episodes back, if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing with some of the people that were on the show, that's something we can do. But I don't think it turned out the way that any of them wanted it to either. A lot of them were actors and a lot of them expected it to bring them other opportunities. I remember there were just like a couple appearances that they went and did for red carpets and stuff like that. And it really did not, the show didn't materialize and make a splash the way that we all hoped it would. And it didn't do anything for the cast that were on it in the way that really would have been great for them, because there were some really talented people and big personalities. Man, I encourage you guys to go and watch this show back because it is so much fun. It was so real and it exactly depicted the experience of working at Saddle Ranch. Okay, to this day, that job, I was a server there first for a few years and then eventually a bartender. That is the craziest job I have ever had. To this day, the most like high stress, physically strenuous. My voice at the end of the night, I wouldn't be able to speak in the next morning from screaming over the music. I opened probably, I think, hundreds of bottles, probably 300 bottles of champagne on any given Sunday morning. It was a lot. It was stressful. In that first episode, they're kind of pitting the Saddle Ranch employees against each other. The new bartender, can she sell as much as the old bartender? And that was a real thing. That's the only place I ever worked to this day where we had a sales goal. Every night you were supposed to sell it was anywhere from I think $1,400 to like $2,800 in the night. So that would be all your checks totaled up and how much they cost. And that was on us because you were supposed to do things like, sell appetizers. Hey, do you guys want to start with an app? Hey, upsell this drink. It's half off the second shot if you want to make it a double. And that was something that they were paying attention to, is the wait staff actually trying to sell and hitting that sales goal, something I always did. And my section of the restaurant, if you look at photos or if you've ever been there, you know very well, there was a front patio, all that goes all along the front and side of the restaurant, right on Sunset Boulevard. And that was always my section of tables were right out there in front. There would be, drunk people walking by, going to and from the Sky Bar and Cabo Wabo, and which isn't even there anymore. This great place where we used to go on our breaks and take shots, and then their employees would come over and take shots of the on their breaks. So there was a lot going on that front patio. It was also the place where the owner of the restaurant, the famous Larry, who you'll see in the Saddle Ranch show, when he rolls up and starts pointing out everything that's wrong and everybody's all on edge because he's there, he would come with his family and sit right out on that first table right out on Sunset Boulevard. And that was my section. I would wait on him every time he came in the restaurant. So just all the things that you see in the show, everything from trying to get along with your coworkers. One of the girls like dumps grenadine in the other's ice bucket behind the bar and just stuff like that. I'm like, that stuff was really going on. They show the break room. I'm like, yep, that's where we really all were having those kind of arguments. That's where it really was all going down. So that's part of the reason why it's fun to sit and watch the show back now. And also because when I watched it the first time, I was so jaded. When it finally aired, I was still working there and I wasn't on the show. And then the people who were on it were getting this attention. So it was rough for me. And now it's a lot more fun to go and watch back. And I suggest that you do. But at the time, I was really bummed about not being cast on the show. I remember on my birthday in December, waking up at home in Minnesota, being home for Christmas and waking up on my birthday and just crying in my childhood bed about the fact that I thought I had lost my big opportunity, my one chance to be a star, which is so incredibly ridiculous. But that's part of the reason why it's cool to look back at these times is because I learned so much. Lesson learned a lot about how unpleasant it actually is to be on a reality show from my friends who did continue filming and be on the show. You know, I learned that the big shot is maybe not your big shot and that more opportunities come later. I think too, after getting over that all that disappointment and being so sad about it, it initially really lit a fire under my butt. The people who were on the show got to go do red carpet events and be there and get interviewed, but I want to be the person who's interviewing celebrities anyway. So that was a time when I really started getting serious about, I'm working at night using my days to go and pursue hosting opportunities and get into red carpet events and start interviewing celebrities or, other reality stars, whoever I could sort of get my microphone in front of their face back then. So it was a huge disappointment and something that I thought was an ending for me, but that really became a beginning, and that started a new chapter of me being a bartender slash host in Hollywood and living both of those lives, moonlighting, going to interviews, and then going to my job behind the bar. And there's actually a really cool moment where that all sort of comes together with a press junket at Saddle Ranch where I had to stand behind the bar and serve people and watch it all go down, and then got to go that evening and work the red carpet and interview the stars myself. So we'll get to that on the next episode. Actually, this was so much fun. Oh my gosh, what a crazy period of time this was. And I have so many stories from working there, so many crazy things that happened. And I'm so grateful for not only my experience working there, but for my experience, almost getting cast on the first ever restaurant reality show, because that's really the reason why when Vanderpump Rules started, why I was so obsessed with it. I just sensed from the beginning that it was going to be bigger and better than the Saddle Ranch show, and that's how I knew to go and take my camera and my microphone and interview Sheena and Jax and Stassi at the restaurant before it ever even aired. So I'm so grateful for this experience with the Saddle Ranch show. And man, it's fun to go back and think about it. So I will see you all next week to talk about the transition from bartender to red carpet reporter. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can watch on YouTube, listen wherever you get your podcast, and please hit me up on social at Christy Reports. I love to hear from you. Talk to you soon.